What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Quality Time with Uncle Drew. And I'm joined by a very special guest, and he's a very special guest because the next guest is always the most important guest. And we are here with the great Leabre McNeal, a person who does some great things in the community as a coach, as a mentor, as a person that younger people can look up to, both athletes and young men that are around school. So without further ado, man, Leabre, how are you?
I'm well, brother. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Man, it's my pleasure, man. Anybody doing anything in the community is good with me. And then at the same time, knowing we come from the same place, from the same city, from the same state, Denver, Colorado, a DPS product, like I'm always willing and ready to highlight people like that because our young men need to continue to see people like us in this good light, doing the good things like giving back like you've done so much. So I appreciate you, man. It would be crazy for me not to have you on.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So as we dive in, man, so we know, like I said, a coach, a mentor, but who is Liabre really?
First and foremost, I'm. Most people will say I'm a man of faith. I'm a believer. Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. I'm not perfect by any means, but I try to walk in a way that reflects Him, that leads people to Him. So the majority of my life, man, I've been blessed, extremely blessed beyond what I deserve. So I try to pay that back in respects to the Lord by paying it back to others. So I try to do everything in philanthropy. I work for the Salvation Army. I use my degree. I'm still using my degree in a philanthropy form. I'm the director of distribution for the Salvation Army. I coach. I co-own a mentoring program called Men Amongst Men. I've been doing that for about 15 years now with one of my college teammates, Zamir McLeod. Yeah, his little brother helped a lot. Zaire Anderson, he played for the Denver Broncos, won the Super Bowl with them. So we spent a lot of time together over that time. And I'm also a teacher, and more so than a teacher, I'm a lifelong learner. I am a community college teacher. I've been doing that for about 8 years, outside of coaching, outside of working. And like I said, yeah, a lifelong learner, man. The world is evolving, and I don't know if I'm just getting older, but it feels like it's rapidly changing, more so in our time than ever else before. So yeah, lifelong learner, philanthropist, and a believer.
Man, summed it up really well, man. And one of the things I really like, and I claim to be too, I put that stamp of approval on my name as far as being a lifelong learner, especially being a coach, man. You're never gonna know everything. There's always gonna be more you can learn. Same thing goes in football and sports and in life.
Hmm.
Like you might get left behind once you think you know everything or once you think you know the best way to do something. With yourself being a DPS product, man, going to East High School, playing football there. What was that like in your just maturation playing, and what did football do for you growing up playing football?
Football always was my main goal growing up. Was honestly my first love. So as I matriculated and understood I wasn't going to the NFL, it led me to still have a goal to get my degree. Without football, without that drive, without that love for the game and playing at the collegiate level, I probably wouldn't have got a college degree. Um, Playing for DPS, times are different now, right? You got to play with a lot of people that you grew up with. Now demographics are completely different in the city that we're from. A lot of people live in what we used to consider the suburban area. The inner city is way more expensive than it used to be. So times are extremely different. A lot of people, including myself, I'm still holding on to what we call considered the good old times of Denver, and that's really what drives me.
So you said once you realized the NFL dream wasn't going to happen, at what point did that happen for you?
So my sophomore year at Clark Atlanta, we had a defensive end by the name of Curtis Johnson. He led the nation. We were also number one in the nation in points per game allowed on defense, yards allowed on defense. But man, he's by far the best football player I've ever seen. He led the nation in tackles, forced fumbles, sacks, and fumble recoveries 2 years in a row. He ended up actually going to the combine out of Clark, Atlanta, and he did end up playing 7 years in the NFL. But when he didn't get drafted, and a lot of teams came to some of our spring workouts and came to see him and told him, "Man, you probably gonna be a third rounder or a fourth rounder." And we were still young at the time, so we didn't understand the process. So we thought, that's what was going to happen to him. But when he didn't get drafted, I said, "Okay, I'm not gonna let the dream go, but I am gonna make sure I get this degree." Because if he's not getting drafted and he's arguably one of the best. He's a top 10 HBCU product ever. Uh, it's definitely time for somebody of my caliber to make sure I get a degree.
You say somebody of my caliber.
Yeah.
No, man, it's tough when you see that, man. You see somebody that you're in practice with every day. They're showing up in the areas that it matters. And you know what people say, man, if you out there balling, they're gonna find you, they're gonna find you, which is true in a way. But when you look at it, there's 7 rounds of the NFL draft. There are, I want to say around about 300 guys that get invited to the combine. So knowing that he got an invite. But then, you got scouts tell him, hey, you're a third rounder, you're a fourth rounder, you're definitely going to go. And then you don't. Like you said, he still had a career playing in the NFL, 7-year career. But after that, it's like, all right, well, if I'm not leading the country in every statistic or if I'm not out here balling, like my chances are really slim. And I think that was also a great thing that you noticed and were able to identify. And like you said, you didn't give up on the dream, but you were just like, all right, let me not have all my eggs in one basket. So we skipped the over part a little bit, but I want to talk about your high school career. So you end up going to a HBCU, Clark Atlanta. In high school, you were able to play football at a high level.
Hmm.
What was it like getting recruited? Did you have scholarships? Was it a matter of like, I just know I'm going to go to school after high school and continue to play football? What was that journey like?
So I went to Tennessee State my freshman year. I
Okay.
signed with them coming out of high school. It was Tennessee State. I had a preferred walk on from UNC Greeley, and I had some partial RMAC offers at the time. My older sister went to a HBCU, and she was living in Nashville at the time. So that kind of pushed my decision to go to Tennessee State. Young, um, thought I should have been playing as a freshman. Let me go ahead and transfer. I had a roommate. He was a 3 star. We laugh all the time. He's one of the first people. He committed to Michigan State, but his grandpa lived in Nashville, so he wanted his grandpa to see his collegiate career. We get there at the same time. He's on the same young-minded stuff as me. I need to transfer. We both transfer to Clark, and that's how I got to Clark. But with my sister going to a HBCU and her being extremely successful in corporate America, her being able to live in 4 or 5 different states. She's 8 years older than me. That's really I always wanted to go. I always wanted to go to a HBCU.
So Big Sis showed you the blueprint.
Definitely, definitely.
No, that's good, man. You talk about that, and it's funny because as I was in high school, I looked at it as not that I didn't really know about HBCUs, but that's because I was like, man, I'm trying to go play football somewhere one of these schools that I watch every weekend, whether it was CU, Nebraska. I just knew I wanted to go to college to play football. And at that time, or even still now, you see it more, but I didn't really see any HBCUs on TV. So I'm like, well, the people at the crib can't even see me play. Like, what I'm
Hmm.
gonna go there for? I had a girlfriend in high school who ended up going to Clark Atlanta, and that's one reason I started looking at not Clark Atlanta, but Georgia Tech, which
Hmm.
also would have been bad because they was running triple option.
Hmm.
Um, but
Hey, they
when it
still
so
had a
when it
first rounder out of that
yeah,
somehow, some
they've
way.
had a couple cats. They've had a couple cats, but like I don't see how Calvin Johnson went there. I'm like I know he's at the crib kind of, but
Hmm.
so when we talk about high school and accepting scholarships or going to a school and really figuring out, because a couple of the things are, okay, am I going to get a full ride or is it a partial or is it a preferred walk on? Like, you know what I mean? Like some of the
Hmm.
things that as you get a little bit later in your recruiting kind of life or your high school life for recruiting, you got to kind of look at it and say, because I don't know about you, but my parents didn't have any money saved for me for college. So I knew I had to get an athletic scholarship. Like that was my best way to go to college. You said you had a preferred walk on from UNC, and we know sometimes a lot of people don't leave Denver. Like a lot of people that are from there kind of stay around there, stick around a little bit. How much did getting away and getting out of the state have more appeal to you than staying where somewhere where it was comfortable?
At the time, I really honestly I didn't think about it. Now I'm grateful, I'm thankful that I did get out of the state and go to college and see different things and get different perspectives from different people, especially different people that come from the same type of backgrounds, look like me, from around the country. But honestly, man, I always, my sister was like, there's really nothing here for an African American male between the ages of 18 to 25. So it's better to go get a degree than really to stay around. And at the time, right, we weren't so much a flyover state, and DPS was highly recruited at the time. Things are completely different now, but DPS, inner city schools were always looked at, and yeah, I always wanted to go to HBCU, and that so when that opportunity presented itself, I jumped at it.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like you talked about DPS products, there was a when you and I were coming up, there were a lot of people going Division 1 or going to some really good schools with scholarships. You knew about the talent in the state. And so staying with high school, so you went to East, I went to Montbello.
Hmm.
Rivalry in
Hmm.
some sort of ways, depending on when you went there, but also just whether if it was Montbello and East or Montbello and George, whatever you want to say, or for the older cast that watched this when or TJ, throw TJ in there, forgot about them, but also Manual back in the day when it was
Hmm.
popping. What do you remember about the rivalries with East and Montbello?
Main thing, man, is the community always showed up for those rivalries. Like I said, due to gentrification, demographics are completely different now. So a lot of people that grew up in Montbello now live in Centennial, or people that grew up in Park Hill or the East Side now live in Westminster, Broomfield, and those type of areas. So you would get a lot more support back then. There was a lot of community support, a lot of pride, right, from alumni. That was the best thing about it.
And Montbello won the majority of those rivalries, though,
I can't.
right?
I'm not a liar. Yes, they did. But this year we beat Montbello 62-0. So I'm trying to get all that back now.
Hey man, don't be coming on my show bringing up stuff that don't matter, man. You'll get kicked off real quick. Nah, but but it's always, man, it's always, even though it was, because you got to remember, like all the people that go to George, East, TJ, Marbella, they all grew up playing on the same little league teams. They all grew up going to the same churches. Their moms
Hmm.
knew each other, whatever it was. So it wasn't just the schools, it was the relationships with the students or the players that go to these schools as well, because you like, man, that's my homeboy. I knew him since I was 6. Like,
Right.
I'm not about to let him get bragging rights over me on this
Hmm.
game. So it's a little bit more personal. Um, when you think about being a student athlete in high school versus a student athlete in college, what was the biggest challenge for you?
Um, Student athlete in high school, I always had that support system that was making sure I wasn't making the wrong decision, making sure that I was being consistent in working out or halfway eating decent, or making sure my grades were always above average. When you get to college, if it's not a habit, it's hard to start. So when I got to college, there's players. I'm sure you saw it at a high level you were at Oregon that are extremely talented that weren't able to play, or that had to go home due to grades, or had to go home just because they weren't consistent and were going off of God given talent forever. But that's really the difference. Um, yeah, I would say that's the difference. It's just having that foundation set at home in multiple areas, specifically grades, so that when you do get to because in high school they'll work with you, right? If you're a good athlete, they're gonna find a way to make sure you're eligible, or find a way you're able to play. Let you turn in late work. 9 times out of 10 in college, you're 1 out of 10 rather than one of one in your hometown city.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about college and my experience in college. You walk into a classroom or a lecture hall, a 101 or a 201 class, and there's 300, 400 people in there, and the professor doesn't know your name unless you, even if you go up and introduce yourself, even if you send a couple emails, he might know who you are just a little bit because he's like, oh, this is that one guy that's talked to me 2 or 3 times. But if you don't make that effort to have a relationship with your teacher, and also it depends on them, but if they don't know who you are when it comes to being late or absent or turning in work or anything like that, they just look at you as a number. And I don't
Hmm.
blame them for it really. Like I said, 300 people that they got to keep track of. They're just looking at grades. But you hit it right on the head. You said, going to school, being there. You walk into college, the first day of class, you get your syllabus, and they probably won't even tell you when anything is due. They'll just be like, you come in class one day and they're like, all right, everybody, now everything's digital. But they might say, hey, such they're not gonna tell you such and such is due tonight at midnight. That's how it was back in my day. They say at
Man,
midnight deadlines for papers.
I remember my accounting class. That was a class you had to, regardless of what concentration in business you studied, you had to take accounting. And I had a professor, RIP, died about 3 or 4 years ago. But we walked into class first day. He said, "Look to the student at your left. Look to the student at your right. They probably not gonna pass this class." And everybody was like, "What is he talking about?" He said, "Yeah, only about 33% of students that take accounting the first time pass it." And I was definitely one of those kids that had to drop the class and retake it the next semester because I it was just way too much.
Mhm. And that's important. Like it's college is challenging. College is tough. For those that don't know, I say it all the time. I took Math 111 3 times in
Hmm.
college. First time I was in there, I was tricking off. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll learn it next week. I'll get it. I'll get it. I dropped the class, kind of like you did. Second time I'm in there a little bit more focused. I'm like, all right, but it was just hard. I've always struggled with math.
Hmm.
So that time I don't think I passed it again, took it past no pass, didn't pass it. And then my third time in there, I'm locked in, and finally it's something started to click like halfway through. But that was one of the first times I spent all-nighters in the library and had me two tutors and was working with some people in class. And finally I passed it though. I did it.
That's what that's what you have to do. I always say college, and my mom had taught me this. College is not really about how smart you are. It's more about, it's a test of your perseverance,
Mhm.
especially if you're a student athlete. But academically, they just want to see if you can get through it. Then the benefits are going to be there for you. But it's all about perseverance.
Yeah. And like you said before, it's your habits. Your habits are going to get you weeded out. If you study and you go to the library and you set apart time to do work, you're going to be all right just because you set that foundational piece. If you one of them people like, I'll do my homework when I get around to it, God bless you.
Hmm.
You ain't gonna be there too long. And so we talk about Clark Atlanta. You go from Denver to Tennessee, then to Clark Atlanta. What was it like going to an HBCU?
Um, it was a challenge, man. It was different, right? It was. I wouldn't say it was a culture shock because I was always a inner city kid. East High School was probably my most diverse time of my life, outside of including everything. But HBCU was beautiful, man. I tell people, college, no matter where you go, PWI, HBCU, it's probably the only time in your life you're gonna have everybody somewhat on the same financial scale that's all trying to do something positive, right? Nobody's trying to backstab each other to get to the next level in a classroom setting. We in finals, we studying together. It's 20 people in the library, 30 people in the library in a group studying together. With sports as well too. It's cutthroat, right? We know it's cutthroat. We all trying to take each other's spot, but we also are trying to help each other, right? We're feeding each other. We're letting each other get a couple meal swipes. So HBCU is a little bit different. We don't have a training table, right? So some people don't have meal cards. So man, if I got 21 swipes for the week, I can let you get three after a workout, or I can let you get one or two for breakfast during the week. So HBCU at Clark, it was beautiful, man. I after leaving Tennessee State, I had a serious conversation with my dad, and he was just like, "You gonna end up at Metro." That was exactly what he said. You're gonna end up at Metro. You making decisions on your own. You're gonna end up at Metro. So I didn't. I went down there with the mentality like I'm not really doing too much partying. I didn't really party at all, honestly, until my last year of college, and I was really just locked in. It was school, football, school, football.
Man, you said two things there that I want to go back to. So Metro is the
And
is
no
it the
shade to Metro. Metro's a great universe. It's not even a college; it's a university. Metro's a great university, but
And it's more so the idea behind it. It's just like, yo, you're gonna be back here at the crib where it's comfortable if you don't make it out there. But Metro is a school in downtown Denver, smaller school, not many, no football program for sure, I'm sure.
no football pro.
But yeah, but there's a lot of people that, if you're trying to figure out your life, not figure out, it's not bad. I ain't even gonna go into it. Let me just stop. But you talked about, going to HBCU and there's no training table for you guys. So it for a lot of universities, Division I universities, depending where you're going, athletes have training table. That means the team has to provide food for you probably 2 to 3 times per day. And
Mhm.
so but there also sometimes as an athlete, you might also have some meal swipes on campus. But what you're saying is that at Clark Atlanta, you guys no training table, so all your meals are at the cafeteria and the places around campus, and you have a limited number of swipes. So you run out of swipes. You had start with 50, and by the end of the week or the end of the month, you run on to zero. You're at zero until the next month. But like you said, you guys took care of each other. You guys are like, yo, bro, I don't even really eat like that. Here you go, get whatever. Bring me my card back for
Mhm.
the most part. And that's very important because, like you said, it's still a time where you're collaborating. Sports, you're still competing against each other, but your best friend might be your backup. Your best friend might be the person in front of you. Your best friend might be the person across from you. Like you guys came there to do a common mission as a team, but then you have people that they're still eyeing and still looking forward to maybe getting to the league or putting up the best stats they can at college at that time, as well as possibly, hey, maybe this team could be undefeated. Maybe this team could win a championship, things of that nature. And so as we get outside of that, so after school, you get into coaching, or no, what is your you said you didn't do much partying, which I love too. That's something that a lot of people don't talk about. I was partying, not gonna lie. We was out at the bar doing stuff sometimes. Didn't really buckle down until my last couple years. Once I was like, all right, I really want to do this football stuff. And I don't
Mhm.
say partying like I'm doing it every night, but I'm like, weekends I was out. Um, what is your thought process as you come upon graduation and now it's time to get into the real world?
So my thought process is, man, is I immediately I had a goal to get a job within 90 days of returning back home. I was also in program called Inroads. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's an internship for minorities. I think it's Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska. I don't know the gentleman's name that started it, but he's a billionaire. He is basically they get you an internship every single summer, and the goal is for where you get the internship, you get a job after you graduate. My internship was, and this is now we getting old, man. In Denver, it was with Quest. So my after my junior year summer, I left after Fourth of July to get back to school. After that internship, Quest actually ended up turning into CenturyLink. So there was no opportunity for me to advance there. So I was like, oh, I gotta get me a job soon as within 90 days. And that was my main focus. I was blessed to not have any attachments to me. Coming back home, actually, at the time, my girlfriend, she went to Clark at the same time. She graduated a year before me, so she was already back. So I didn't have any attachments in Atlanta, but that was really my goal was let me get a job when I get back. I get back, I started working for FedEx about a month after as a warehouse supervisor, and I've been in supply chain management ever since.
Man, that's awesome. Like you said, not you gave yourself a 90-day rule.
Yeah.
Mm,
You got to
that's
have a
that's
goal, man. And I think that's anything can be accomplished, right? I'm a believer in if you want to chase a dream, man, anything. There's nothing that's impossible, but you have to actually have a plan. You can't just say I want to do this and expect for it to happen, or like what's the timeline? There's stepping stones to every single big goal, every big dream, and if you don't have a timeline, I always say if it's not written down, it's not real either.
Mm.
So I wrote that down in my little prayer journal. 90 days, find a job. Found one within 45 days. Started off as a part-time warehouse supervisor. Um, was a part-time warehouse supervisor for about 3 months, and then I became a full-time supervisor. And I started coaching for the Park Hill Pirates. And I never in my life imagined I would be a coach, but I fell in love with it. Fell in love with the kids, seeing the growth and going to Super Bowls, winning championships, seeing the kids, man, be so attentive and being able to actually learn the game and learn details at 7, 8 years old. That's what made me really fall in love with coaching.
Man, I'm gonna have to steal that slogan. If it's not written down, it's not real. I'm definitely gonna have to borrow that, man. That is powerful in a sense. And so talking about your transition from college to the working world, you also made a great pivot talking about working for Quest and then that turning into CenturyLink and there not being a position or job for you. And then now you have to be like, all right, well then what's next? What do I do next? Then you get into another career, then you find out, you find coaching, you find a team, you find some young men that you really like, you find something that you really like doing. How did you build on that? Like what have you developed as your coaching philosophy from that point up to now? Like if somebody asked you what your coaching philosophy is, what would you say?
I would say, and the kids will say the same thing. I always repeat it almost every day. Everything matters, right? How you wake up matters. How you make your bed matters. The details in practice matter. Like we're living in this generation where social media makes us think a lot of things are simulated, and we see everybody's highlights of life. But growing up, I never saw Michael Jordan in person. I saw a lot of Michael Jordan games on TV, and even those were like, oh, it's CBS or NBC or whatever they used to come on a Sunday or a Friday evening. But now these kids can really look directly into LeBron's life on YouTube. They can look directly into his life, but LeBron's not showing his. He's showing some workouts, but you can't feel what he's doing from a screen. But again, those are still highlights. But everything matters. You're not able to do details. You're not able to even really self-reflect unless you say, "Did I really give my all today? Did I really? What details did I miss today? Did I give 70%?" And it's okay, right? None of us are perfect, but to be realistic with ourselves, we have to be able to say, to be able to backtrack and say everything matters. What did I do great at? What did I do just okay at? And what did I fail at on a day to day, on a week to week basis? Because when it's time for a game or when it's time for an interview as an adult, you can always look back and say, man, maybe if I would have finished that last certification, I would have that to put on my resume and maybe I get the job. Or, man, I got scored on a slant route. I did not go to early outs that Coach Lee had all week. And all we worked on was two-step kicks and picking the ball off in early outs. And I didn't do that drill and I got scored on a slant. So like I think my coaching philosophy is just that the details matter, but everything matters. How you carry yourself is very important. The things that you listen to music wise, the stuff that you watch on social media, every single thing matters. What you put into your body, not just food, but what you put into your mental and into your soul, it's going to translate. Everything's going to come out at some point.
Man, you hit on a couple things there. You said everything matters, but and it's funny because when I talk to coaches, they're talking about sports, but they're also talking about a lot about life. Like it's interchangeable. And if you low key didn't put any meaning behind anything, you would see how it applies in every aspect of life, if you know what I'm saying.
Hmm.
And by you saying, hey, what you listen to matters, what you're eating matters, who you're hanging with matters. And I feel like as athletes, I think we're socially trained to the point that we're always like, all right, you walk into a film room with the coach and you get a good job. Hey, you did this great, but nobody scores out at 100%. You know what I mean? You get a 95%, you get a 90%. Hey, you
College
did
film
this.
room is the most honest place in the world, man. For the best player, the worst player, for anybody.
Yep, because they know right when you get stagnant or when you say, "Oh, cool, I got a perfect score, I'm good." that's when you done lost and messed up because that means you think you made it. And our
Mhm.
my special teams coach in Atlanta used to say it all the time. The hay is never in the barn. He said, when you leave this building, you go home, turn on that iPad. When you in the hotel laying in the bed before the game, turn on that iPad, watch the film. When you sitting in the locker room before an hour and a half before kickoff, go over the play sheet. We get like he was always saying like, yo, until you hit that field. And even when you're on that field, you got to make adjustments and things like that. But he was like, don't sit here and come to work and turn it off once you go home. And that's that next level of just when you know you're elite. I'm not
Mhm.
even just talking about an athlete, but as a person, when you're working on
Preparation.
your craft, yeah, when you're working on your craft, once you leave the place you're at and you find yourself slowly continuing to dig back into it.
For sure. Preparation, man. It's funny that you say that. I don't know what other high school coaches do, but I always have something on paper that I hand out on the bus before we head to a game. Whether we're going to all city or I don't need joking. You can joke on the bus, you can do whatever, but let me see if you locked in. And it's low key a quiz. If it's trips over here, what do we check to? I need you to draw it out. And most of the time I don't have the time to check it before a game, but I check it after a game and I say, "Oh, this is why he's a starter." And this person is probably a little bit more talented than him, a little bit better, but now it makes sense why he's more focused in practice, why he understands everything. And yeah, preparation is everything. Like how you wake up, we former athletes, but how I wake up for work, it determines usually how the day's gonna go.
And giving tests before the game on the bus. Nah, that's that's you got to see who's locked in, really. But no, I like that one. We used to have a coach at Oregon, and he would it was our weightlifting coach actually, Coach Jimmy Radcliffe. I talked about him the other day. And every night before the game, he would do room checks. But he'd been doing room checks for like 15 or 20 years or something. And every room check, he'd come, make sure you were there, and he put like a little note in your shoe. He'd always look for our travel shoes, put a note in there. And it was always just a motivating quote or just something to take into tomorrow's game.
Hmm.
And I always look forward to him coming in and doing bed checks. There was a couple times he would come in and I was knocked out sleep. Like I don't play. I don't play about my sleep. I go to sleep. And but I was always interested in like people in their process of how they do things or what they're trying to tell you or what they're trying to get out of you. And Coach Rad was very consistent as a person, and it's those things that I miss. But what you saying, you give a test on the bus before every game, and you might not even get to it before the game, but maybe how they play, you could already know, oh yeah, he got an A on his test, I'm sure when I check it, because that's what we
Hmm.
talked about all week in practice. He's been listening. That's the thing he messed up on that he corrected. And football is about mistakes and corrections. That's pretty much all it is.
Yeah.
It's about being able to see something, being able to react, and being able to be confident in how you react as well. And so just knowing you do that, man, I think that's definitely next level stuff. And for the student athletes and the kids that you have and the young men, they since they know they get that from you, they know that they have to be, hey, I gotta be on my stuff because I know coach is gonna test me on it before the game. So I
Hmm.
can't come in there half stepping.
It's funny, man. One of the kids on the little Instagram notes, they write, "Dang, man, Coach Lee's test is almost like the final exam in algebra." I'm like, it's not that deep, but that just tells me you don't pay attention to film if it's that hard for you to. It's usually no more than 9 or 10 plays. And what do you do in this situation?
100%, man. And so we talk about DPS, and there's something that's going around a lot of high school sports where, you might have, the best inner city kids that go to, a private school or, what I mean, a suburban school. They get bused or they travel a long way to go to that school. When we look at DPS, so just staying in Denver, um, why do you think in Denver we have so many DPS kids who go on to have very successful careers and most likely go to the NFL than we do suburban kids?
I would say we just more talented, man. It's like nah, a little bit, just naturally, right? We got people like Calais Campbell, that went on, still playing, older than me, still in the NFL as a major player. And I think the suburban kids do well from Colorado in the professional leagues too. That's a great question. I just think that the journey might be a little bit more tougher, and you can speak to that. You could have went to Mullen. You could have went to Cherry Creek. You could have went to Valor, coming out of eighth grade, but you did it coming out of Montbello. And how many years did you play in the NFL? Now I'm interviewing you.
Four, it's all good.
Okay, you played four. But that's a testament to your grit, right? To what you had to learn in your own neighborhood, what you had to go through to get there, and it's lessons that you carried on, and it became a habit of having that grit that you might not have gotten had your parents sent you to a private school where they maybe would have catered to you a little bit more. You didn't have to walk through the ditches in Montbello your freshman, sophomore year to get home.
Hey, that's a whole nother story talking
Yeah,
about
that's
them ditches. Hey, getting stuck in there when there's some snow in there. Hey, you better
man.
get your you better be able to run up out of there sideways. Better
Huh,
get right.
I don't know nothing about that.
Speaking on that, man, I would say, like, I would say the amount of adversity you've already gone through, staying in a public school, just public area you've been in. I know a lot of people worry about the education, and that's the excuse that a lot of parents make. Oh, it's not a good education there. I don't want them to get lost in the sauce. But I think with me, just speaking to myself personally, I think I'd be going to a public school and going to my bellow. I still think there were a lot of people around me that really cared for me
Hmm.
past the football, past high school. And I think that that matters. Not saying that they don't at other schools, like, not to call anybody out, but the schools I know, like a Regis or a
Hmm.
Mullen or something like that. But sometimes I think they're just trying to fill their own agenda at that point. They're like, yo, how can you help us win? How can you help us to get us to state? Because I've had a couple of friends who've gone to those schools and ended up like not written, their grades weren't right. Let's say that their grades weren't right. And so when it comes time to go to college, like schools are like, nah, we need you to either have a high test score or we need you to have a out of this world GPA, and your
Hmm.
GPA is not going to be able to get there in the next year. And so from that point, you're like, okay, so they were letting them slide. They was, giving them the passing grades they need to be able to play. And like I said, that's not all schools, but I have a couple homeboys who were in that situation that went to schools like that. And so when I look at that, I look at, me going to my bellow, my head football coach was was the algebra teacher, freshman year. He
Okay,
was around, he was in the hallways, Coach Lucas. Shout out Oliver Lucas.
legend.
And yeah, and he was at school the whole day. He was
Hmm.
walking the hallway. So like if you was doing something foolish, your head coach was right in the building, was one of your teachers. And one of the things that I really liked that Coach Lucas did, like that was the first time I was in high school and I saw college coaches coming in and out every other day. And Coach Lucas would pull me out of class to introduce me to a coach. And I thought it was one of the coolest things, but also I was just like, yo,
He
like I got
cares.
to, yeah, like why out of all the people on the team or all the other freshmen right now, why am I one of the, few people that are getting introduced to this coach that's coming in here? And knowing that I'm not even old enough to receive or to my junior year to receive a scholarship. So, I mean, but those are the things though, like when you go to a public school or a place that you have a lot of that you have a lot of connections and a lot of relationships with, whether if it's friends that whether if it was, your mom went there, you have a family member that's going there, whether you have a coach in the building. Like I think all those things matter. And like I said, me looking up and being able to see I had an African American coach who I would see him dressing up to teach class. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
that stuff
It
mattered. He
did
wasn't
something
just
to
the
you
he wasn't
mentally.
just a he wasn't just the gym teacher, not no shade to anybody.
Hmm.
He wasn't just a gym teacher or anything. Like this dude is, the math teacher, and he's wearing this big old championship ring from CU when he coached up there in the late 80s and early 90s. So in my mind, I was like, yo, this dude is for real about who he's bringing in. I better make sure I take care of things on the front of grades, of my behavior, of my absences in school and my attendance. Like those are the things that like I was really worried about. But not to say I wouldn't have done all that stuff if I went to another school. I had my sister who was in the school who was three uh 3 years ahead of me. And
Okay.
so like I had eyes on me to be like, yo, Drew's doing what he need to do, or hey dad, Drew's messing up. You need to have a conversation with him.
Hmm.
And so that's pretty much what I'd say on my end. And you operating as a coach and a mentor. There's a lot of times you're seeing some good stuff happen to a lot of people that you work with and the young men that you do things for. What's been your happiest moment that you can point to as a coach or a mentor?
Last year I had a first kid that I coached, mentored. We started at 8 years old with him, well, 6 years old, honestly, with him when he was with the Park Hill Pirates. He got drafted by the Carolina Panthers. His name is Shaw Smith Wade. Man, phenomenal kid, hard worker. You know, you look at things different now that when you get older compared to 15 years ago when I met the kid. But he went to Aurora Central his first 2 years of high school, and then he ended up transferring to Chicago, leaving to Chicago, moving with some family, and he went to Washington State. But he worked so hard. I remember seventh, eighth grade, he would call me, "Can you come work me out at a park across the street from his house that couldn't have been more than 20 yards wide, 20 yards long?" And we would just go get it in, man. And he would like, I'd be like, "Hey, man, it's raining today. We're gonna wait." "Oh, this rain ain't stopping nothing." This is a seventh and eighth grade kid, and even during COVID, before he went to college, he was here taking his senior classes in Chicago remotely, but we worked out 6 days a week. I remember the day before he left, I was like, "Man, I'm gonna cancel, bro. It's raining. We could just pray over the phone before you leave." He literally said, "Man, this rain ain't stopping nothing. I'll see you in 30 minutes." And that was my proudest moment. Not only seeing him drafted, but then midway through the season, seeing him become a starter as a fifth round pick for the Carolina Panthers, man, and just seeing him still have that same hunger, like he hasn't been drafted or like he hasn't made it. That's what I like to see, because, like I said, I like the kids not only to be successful but to also be like us, lifelong learners, man, because there's never a time where you don't want to increase in your productivity or you don't want to increase in what you can give back to the world. And he's one of those kids that every year when he wins a Super Bowl, he's going to say, "Well, I got to at least win two, or I got to try to get MVP of the next Super." It's always going to be what's next for him. So he's definitely my proudest moment right now.
Man, congrats on being able to help and assist a young man get to where he's going. And, a lot of times as a mentor or a coach is you trying to get the players or, a young man to do something. But it's also something else when it kicks in when they're pulling you and you
Hmm.
like, you're trying to pull him back. Like, hold on, bro. Like I told you it's raining. We don't want to fall and
Hmm.
get hurt. Nah, this ain't a little rain, ain't nothing. Like, especially for what they're trying to do. So that speaks to where his level of kind of drive was, where he has something in his head, he has a destination he's trying to get to, and he's not gonna let anything stop him. I had like I think everybody can point to a coach that pushed them a little bit more, but man, when you start getting somebody's time, like somebody told me, like, man, people can give you money, they can give you clothes and equipment and this, but when they give you time, something that they cannot get back, like that's what shows how much they really, really rock with you and how much they really, really mess with you. And for
Hmm.
me, that person was my high school coach, Palika Houston, where we're
Legend.
like you said, we're going
Another
to
legend.
parks, we're going to a place called Crybaby Hill, which
Hmm.
that should let you know off top that you're gonna be crying by the end of the
Where's that? Ruby
workout.
Hill?
That's right out there, DTC. Yep,
Okay.
DTC area. And and I'm going out there by myself. And but that's what I wanted. I wanted to go Division 1. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to be a person that was like, yo, if I'm not athletic enough to get there, cool. But I'm gonna work my ass off and
Hmm.
I'm gonna try to get there. It's not gonna be because don't work hard. So once again, coach, man, just I appreciate you, man, because we do all this stuff and we don't want anything in return. You know what I mean? We want to raise and give a good example to young men so they have a vision and something to see and for them to be like, all right, cool. Like I have an example right in front of me of
Hmm.
possibly who I want to be when I grow up. But seeing that come to fruition on the back end, like and that's why I asked you the question. There's nothing like it. Like you can't put a price tag on it.
You can't.
Sometimes you can't even put words to it. You're just like sometimes you can't even describe it. You're just like, yo, like I just We just had this special relationship. This was a special dude. He's destined for special things. And one thing I hope that the guys that I work with, I just hope they pass that down to
Mm-hmm.
5, 10, 15 more
Mm-hmm.
people and do that same thing because we need a lot of young men that need that guidance, that needs that support, that need that love. And so once again, man, just thank you for even being able to pour into people like that, like you've done for so long.
Thank you. Thank you. It's I think it's mandatory, especially nowadays. As the dynamic of households, especially black households, have changed. So these kids, they definitely need not just role models, but they need positive role models. They need positive affirmation, and they need tough love. Because some of them don't have male figures around them to hold them accountable for the negative things that we all are gonna do at some point in our life, but they need reality and they need it from true men.
Mm, man, couldn't have said it any better myself, bro. When it comes to education, why is you have a bachelor's, you have a master's, like you said, you're a lifelong learner. Why should education be important to these young men?
Education is something that can't be taken from you. It's something that there's nothing that can happen fluke wise with your education for a long period of time, right? You could be number one athlete in the state of Colorado, poised to be a second round draft pick, starting from your junior year in high school, and you can go to college and tear your ACL twice and it's over with. But bearing a recession or something like that, if you got your education, like I always tell people, I don't know too many people over the age of 35 with a bachelor's degree that are struggling. Maybe
Mm,
living paycheck to paycheck because they're living close to their means or a little bit beyond their means, but people with bachelor's degrees, I mean, and it's proven for years. You make over $2 million in a lifetime span without sports if you have a bachelor's degree rather than not having a degree. That's the average, right? There's definitely going to be special occasions. There's nothing wrong with getting, and I look at now the way the economy is, the way the world is, a trade school, a CDL, that's equivalent to a bachelor's degree to me too. But something on paper that says you're verified to do something to make a profit, to better somebody's life, to earn a consumer, that's mandatory. You can't just say, "Hey, man, I cut hair. You gonna let me cut your hair for $40 today?" How long have you been cutting hair? Where's your book at? Let me see whose hair you cut. Do you have a license? And that's with anything, plumbing, uh, cooking, anything. But education is something that can't be. It can't be something that's taken from you. Sports can be taken from us as much as we love it, as much as we desire it. We can't put all our. We can put all our egg. We should put all our eggs in the basket for it if that's something that we want to do. But we also have to be realistic and know that it's not ever 100% guaranteed. But education, bearing a recession, which is always something temporary. Education is about 99% pure. It's a Six Sigma thing.
mm. And I can speak wholeheartedly on tearing the ACL and having to rethink what your career is or what it might be. At University of Oregon, I tore my ACL on my very first start, my very
Wow.
first one. And so it wasn't at that point that I wasn't good at doing anything else, but I had put a lot of time and a lot of effort into football. And from that point of me tearing my ACL and doing rehab and getting back right, that's about the time I said, if I didn't have football, what would I do?
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly didn't have an answer to that question. And so my goal for the rest of them, for those 2 years after that, one was to get healthy enough to come back and start, but the other one was having an answer to that question. And that's when I fell in love with psychology. That's
Mm-hmm.
when I realized my love of helping other people and being able to be a person that can hear them and give them some good advice that got me into coaching and what I want to get me to a psychologist later down the road. But you're 100% right with that. Your education, and my mom said this. She said she always used to say, "I guess school ain't for everybody." Yeah, school ain't for everybody, but
But
education
education
is.
is for sure.
Yeah, and let's be real. Those two things are different, but you can always educate yourself. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't, whether like you said, a trade school, CDL, barbers are some of the biggest biggest pillars in the community because low key they're your barber, but
Your
they're also your
psychologist.
therapist, your
Yeah.
psychologist. Yeah,
And
you
you have
sit
to be
down.
educated to do all of those things. They're not just handing out CDLs at Walgreens for $5, $10. They're not just handing out barber's license. You have to go through the educate. You have to go through a process. You have to learn things. You have to know the rules and regulations, and you have to perform to be able to obtain that to earn something off of it.
Yep. And I would say the biggest thing, so the people out there that's arguing about, man, school, they shouldn't have to do that, you shouldn't have to do that, doing that's whack, you should just be able to do it. It's one, it's kind of it's a test for you to see how good you are at setting out to do something and completing it.
Hmm.
So for those people that want to push back and say, I should be able to do this because this you want your doctor coming in working on you and he ain't finished school? I don't think so. But more so it's a testament to you on setting out to do something, completing it. That's what it's really about. It's about completing it. There's so many people that start something and don't finish because it gets too hard, it gets too
Perseverance.
challenging, and that's where you work on that perseverance. That's where you get that's where you're facing adversity to push through it, overcome. Those are the things we talk about. And that's why with Liabre and myself, that's why when we coach you guys, I want you to go through some adversity. I
True.
want you to have some things. I want you to come to me with some problems. And I'm like, okay, we'll talk about it. Then I'm going to ask you, all right, what do you think you should do about it? How do you think you're going to get through to the other side? Because a little bit of that process is us making that decision and helping you together. But then once you leave me, I need you to be able to make those right decisions when you're not around, when I'm not
Right.
around.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing. And that's what we worry about you guys with. And so I want to make sure. So I appreciate your time, man. I got two more questions for you because I really want
Okay.
to ask them. When it comes to the high school landscape right now with NIL and the transfer portal, how has that changed recruiting in high school?
Completely. Um, I got a relative, man, Kevin Coleman. Shout out to Lil Kev. He's at University of Missouri now. He's on his fourth transfer. Now everybody would probably say, "Oh, he's shouldn't be doing it." Every transfer he's done has made complete sense, and he wasn't only All American, Under Armour All American in high school, but he was a 3.9 GPA student as well. His mom don't play games; she's a teacher. But just seeing his recruiting process, he dabbled with Oregon. He ended up at Jackson State with Dion. He came out the same year with Shador and Travis Hunter. Him and Travis Hunter were best friends. But seeing his recruiting process and NIL, it's more cutthroat now than it was 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, right? They used to, oh, I'm gonna just recruit a kid. He's a 3 star, but he has a 4.0. He may never be a starter, but he's gonna help our team GPA. Or I'm gonna recruit this kid. He ended up not panning out, but he's a good kid. He can stay 4 years on scholarship. That's no longer a thing. It's a year-to-year scholarship now. So the difference now is, and this is why not only kids but parents, more importantly, have to be extremely educated, knowing that nobody is special, right? A lot of kids are praised for, let's be real, little league accolades, high school accolades. But when you get to college, it's literally 10 of you, no matter what you are. If you're All American, it's 10 of you on a roster at a G5 level. It's 10 All Americans on Oregon, probably signed 5 All Americans this year. And there's 15 others that's on the roster from previous classes. If you're a 3 star, there's 10 of you. If you're a 4 star, there's 10 of you. So in Colorado, man, as a flyover state, we got to really start matching up, not just highlights, right? Because we got to be real. This is not Texas. This is not Florida. Do we have some of the same talent to match up with those kids on an individual base? I personally believe so. Maybe bias wise, but our hit the people that go to college hugely from Colorado end up playing. The people that go to the NFL from Colorado, like yourself, they make a name for themselves. But we have these. Our parents have to be very knowledgeable and be taught by the right people, people that have seen the process, have led other people through the process, have been through the process themselves. Because just because you think your baby is good, that doesn't mean they're good. If they're a kid under a let's be real, under a 3.3 GPA, and they're not a 3 or a 4 star, there's probably 60 to 100 other people in that position group that are a 3-star with at least a 3.5 GPA. So your kid is no longer as special as you think he is. He could be a good athlete, he could be a great person. But if we're talking about paying a coach's bills, making sure this coach's family is able to get their mortgage paid and get their kids fed every year, does your kid really fit the program needs? Is he consistent? Does he show good character? Does he have community service on his record? When they come pull his GPA or pull his transcript, are they going to say, "Oh, okay, grades are nothing that we'll have to worry about with this kid"? Does he work out consistently in all phases? Is he doing the things that are not as fun? Is he running track? Is he lifting weights? Or is he just doing what is fun for him, playing football? So the recruiting landscape has completely changed. It's harder to get recruited as a high school student now because of the transfer portal, right? I'm sure you saw it. There were some of the best players on my college teams never played for various reasons, right? Maybe favoritism, uh, maybe didn't know the playbook, but I know there's some other teams in our conferences back then that would say, "Man, if I can get that backup quarterback that y'all got, we win 2 or 3 more games." And now colleges are realistically able to do that to say, "Okay, they got Drew Davis starting, but Anthony Davis is right behind him. He's a 3-star. Man, we would love to have him at Oregon State." So instead of going to sign the 3-star from Seattle, Washington, that's a really great athlete in basketball and football. Shoot, we're gonna go talk to Anthony behind Drew's back, behind the coach's back, and we're gonna offer him $250,000 to transfer and not sit on the bench. And we don't have to teach him how to wake up at 4 a.m. for workouts. We don't have to teach him how to eat properly. We don't have to teach him how to compete at a D1 level in practice. We don't have to teach him how to do his homework in college. These are all things that parents have to really be cognizant about. I mean, a lot of parents haven't been through the process. It's unfortunate, and I'm not throwing no shade, but we're in this generation, and my mom said it when I first started coaching. This is the first generation of kids having kids. So,
Mm.
being a real learner as a parent, you really have to do your research. And yes, there are some extremely, extremely talented kids in Colorado, all over the nation. But what's going to really push my kid to the next level? Not what school they go to, not who's around them, not who their trainer is, but what do they need to work on personally? Is it grades? Is it attitude? Is it work ethic? Is it public speaking? Um, what is it? And we can always get better. And as far as I'm back to your question, as far as just recruiting has changed, I would sum it up to just say it's more cutthroat. Um, you're not going against high school kids to get recruited anymore. You're going against kids that's 21 years old that it didn't work out, and they might have started their freshman sophomore year and then got hurt their junior year, and now you're fighting for a scholarship with them their senior year because they got benched after they got hurt, and a freshman All American came in and shined. So I would sum it all up to say it's extremely cutthroat, and you have to make sure you dot all your T or dot all your I's, cross all your T's, and that you're on point in every level from grades to the best you can do with your body because that's God given, right? I'm not 6 foot. Some people won't never be 6 foot, but you can work on your speed. You can get a speed trainer. You can be in the weight room consistently so that you look to part or as to part as possible when a college recruiter comes to your high school or to your house to look at you or when you go to a college camp. And it's also football's not as much as a middle class or a low class sport. In order to get seen, especially out of Colorado, got to go to camps. And in order to get a look, you got to be prepared at a camp. It's not just
Mm.
going to a camp. We went to UNLV's camp 2 years ago, and some of the kids I took had never done a vertical jump. And these are things they test in all 150 kids in the camp.
Yep.
Your vert in the weight room, your 40 time, your shuffle time. And they're worried about all that. Your film is, everybody that's there has good film. And that's a beautiful thing, but is everything else up to par? That's where the decisions get made.
Man, you I don't think I could have said it any better than you just did, and I would have said a lot of that same stuff. So as you were talking, I'm like, dang, he checking off everything that I was possibly gonna say. But that's coming from someone who's in high school, who's seeing this year to year. I can speak about it. I worked at UCLA kind of when NIL was kicking up, and to be honest, the coaches they don't have long now. They got maybe 2, maybe 3 years, and so now
Hmm.
they're trying to plug and play and you're trying to plug and play, and also you got players leaving and mass exoduses based upon if you have a coach leave or get fired or anything like that. And so in their mind, just like you said, high school now, you used to be just recruiting or you just used to be competing against other high schoolers for scholarships. Now you're having to go against other guys that are coming from other colleges who gotten film at the college level. You're going against other guys who now JUCO has they still have their full eligibility if they're able to go D1, which matters.
Hmm.
So for athletes out there, like you got to take care of what you can take care of. Like you said, and grades shouldn't be an issue. You know what I mean? Attendance in class shouldn't be an issue. Being in the weight room after school, if you don't have any other sports, I don't know if they still doing that these days, but that's something like we shouldn't be
Even if
anything
you
that
are playing another sport, 24-hour
hey,
fitness is open at 6 a.m. If you're
hey,
serious.
hey,
Vasa
you,
Fitness is open at 6 a.m. before you go to school.
hey, you didn't hear it from me. You heard it from Leon. But he's everything he's saying is 100% real though. Like he's around athletes, he's around players, he's a coach, he's in these fields. He had, like he said, he has players that are playing in college, people that he's coached. And just a lot of the stuff you just said is real, man. So I hope people take heed to that, whether you're an athlete or you're a parent, that you continue to get educated with it. And just as we wind this down, man, you said a lot in there. You said some stuff that I'm sure you're probably gonna say even with this last question. But any last pieces of advice you have for athletes or parents of those athletes?
Make education a priority. Um, with NIL, there's kids now. I'm watching quarterbacks that are in their fifth, sixth year that are telling the media, I know I can go start at a Power Five school or a G5 school, and I know I can go make $1 million, but I'm not going to the league. That's why I'm staying in college, so I can make another $1 million. So make sure education is taken care of first. There's probably 0.02% of kids that are going to the NFL that are going to play at a professional level to where they can even retire off of that money. I would say make sure education is first, and make sure you all the details matter. Make sure if this is what you want to do, you're doing everything to make yourself not just the best at your sport in your state, but the best total student athlete. Academics, community service, the people that you surround yourself with, the kids. Sometimes you cannot let your kid hang out with certain kids. That's just the honest truth. Uh, you put a piece of an apple in a batch of bad apples, it's gonna turn bad. So you have to separate your kid and put them in. And man, just I would suggest to parents to find a good church and start attending it. I know my church home has done a ton for the kids that I train and the kids that I coach. We got elders that take them out to eat and mentor them, and kids that I've trained. They're not even kids no more. They 26, 25 that have graduated and got degrees, and now they're around the kids that I've mentored, and they're sending their film to college coaches. It's a revolving circle, and make sure you're always on the right side of it with the right people.
Yeah. Powerful, powerful interview. I appreciate your time.
Appreciate
Uh,
you, man.
For real, man. Like I said, when I wanted to highlight some people that are doing some great stuff, you're one of the people that came up pretty high on that list, and we were able to just get this scheduled and get it done. I know this will bring a lot of value to student athletes. I know this will bring a lot of value to parents. I know this will bring a lot of value to other coaches. And at the end of the day, man, keep making an impact, keep being you. I appreciate you. I love you. And if you ever need anything to me, bro, just let me know.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you and love you too, brother. Keep doing
All
your
right,
thing, man.
All right, everybody, that's the end of this episode. Once again, that is Coach Leabre McNeal, coaching at East High School, a coach, a mentor, a visionary, somebody who's doing great stuff in the community. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next time.
Peace.